Hello, folks. Hello, folks. Yeah, this is just a little quick vid. I'm sure everybody know that one of my favorite athletes and one of the greatest real civil rights fighters of all times has passed away this morning, and I find it quite, you know, uplifting, so to speak, that so many others. He was known at one time. His face was one of the most famous faces on earth. Uh, I'm not talking about the fact just because he was black. And the thing that he really stood out for, a lot of time during the 1960s, when we had Malcolm X, Dr. King, Medgar Evers, you know, and so many others that everybody was going with. The main thing about war was the Vietnam War, and so many people were going over there and dying. But remember, Vietnam wasn't even our war at first. It caused a lot of turmoil, and Ali stood. Ali said, I am the greatest. But he came on the scene. Well, he was, you know, not when the Olympics, but he really became world renowned, so to speak, after his fight and after he beat Sonny Liston, and that was in 1964 when he beat Sonny Liston and he got the title. And he was the first one. He had the world heavyweight champion title. He had won it 3 times. And it was so fascinating of a figure. He was a larger than life figure. He was really inspirational. He was a real inspiration to me, and I met him in person when I was back home in Queens, New York. Me and my nephew was also grown at the time. I'll be brief. And we were on Northern Boulevard in Queens, New York. One Friday night, it was about 1984. We were just going to the store, and I had my son, and a big cream-colored Continental pulled up, and it jumped the curb, and all of a sudden my nephew said, "Watch out! They're going to start shooting." We didn't do anything, man. What do you mean? Started for work a few hours ago. Up jumps Muhammad Ali. The crowd gathered, and this must have been about 9:30 that night, between 9:30 and 10. He jumped around, he shook all of our hands, he picked my son up and kissed him, and he said, "Don't ever let anybody tell you, or don't you ever say that Muhammad Ali won't come back to check on his people." And he was known for that. And I've heard somebody in the background say you would never hear Sugar Ray Leonard do anything like that. And he had some of the 5 toughest fights, but I'm just going to pick the three uh, um, when he fought Sonny Liston and he won the title in 1964. And the other one when he fought Smoking Joe Frazier in the Thriller in Manila. Mm. When he beat him in October 1st, 1975, for that was the last of 3 fights that they had. And he said that was the closest he ever came to death. But I find him, he was quite remarkable. And one person I read in another video, he said that you can't, I bet you one thing, none of these so-called pro athletes today will even come anywhere near. See, he had the world practically on his shoulders. He was financially broke. He was literally destitute, literally. Because they stripped him, when Ali said, I ain't got no quarrel with no Viet Cong. Ain't no Viet Cong ever called me no nigga or use the N-word, shall I say. That's you. You my biggest opposer. And it was remarkable. It resonated all throughout the world. And I missed the fact that when he changed his name from Cassius Marcellus Clay Jr. to Muhammad Ali, I mean, oof, that opened up the whole Arab world was looking at him. Man, I love to see that guy. I shook him. He was quite a towering figure. And what a remarkable man he was to me. And he was always an inspiration. Me and my nephew back home was talking about it today. And another thing that he said about when he went to a trial, he said, I won't be used by no powerful white man as a tool to kill other people who are fighting for their religious rights and their freedom. That's just remarkable. Even though, when that clown, what is his name, Sterling or something. He was the head of the Clippers, the owner of the Clippers. You hear what he said about all those people? Basically black. None of them stood up and said as much as Ali. He was the only one when all else had turned against him, all of these civil rights movements of that day. And he opposed Dr. King's speeches. Let's integrate. See, that's not the way them guys thought. And to be honest, I mean, I'm not a separatist, but I mean, we should have cleaned our own house first. And just the very thing what Malcolm X said, the very thing what Martin Luther King stood for has flipped the other side. But what Malcolm X said is coming true. And I'm not even a Muslim. What Muhammad Ali stood for and what he said back in the 60s is true today. You're worse off now than you ever were, but that's a subject for another time. But I was proud, and I'm still proud of the man. You know, nobody's perfect. We all have faults. But he stood his ground. He stood for, and what this man will do, he was asked to go to all these different colleges. He even went to Harvard and spoke. And after a while, the whole the mind of the country changed. They were against Vietnam. Can you imagine that? I mean, you don't see this today. Look at these so-called. One of the major problems today is our so-called civil rights, self-appointed civil rights leaders have failed us. Man, I'm proud of Ali. I'm glad I was glad to have met him, and I'm proud of him. Rest in peace, champ. We need a fighter like you today. Look where we are, man. We're disappearing. Black men are only 6.6% of the population. Do you know that? We are being knocked out. I'll repeat it again. We are being knocked out. Much props to Ali. I'm gonna be honest. You know, it's we're not having it good, and we're not doing good, and we're being replaced. And these clowns have gotten us, so-called civil rights leaders, got us marching up and down for all these other people. And I'm not against other people. But we should be marching for something else. We should have been marching to be left alone. To repay us for Black Wall Street. Repay the descendants of Black Wall Street. You got people fighting for reparations. Okay, I have no fault with that. But I mean, the country is in debt. But the thing is, I'm going off now. But the thing is, Ali stood alone. When he stood alone, when he said, I'm not going over there to fight no Viet Cong. Even the civil rights leaders were against him, and he stood his ground by himself. He wasn't no Uncle Tom, as you call him. He wasn't no Sambo. He wasn't no turncoat or no Judas. He stood his ground like the man he was. That's what we need today. Real men, especially real black men, not these old milksop, backstabbing, FBI informant, slewfoot, hypocrite, phony, self-appointed pastor that never had a church, so-called civil rights leaders. These old. We need real men like Muhammad Ali with that same fierce determination, and stood alone and won. Took them to court and cut their behind. Thank God for him. We don't agree with everything he did. Quite naturally wasn't perfect, but he stood his ground. And a lot of times he was alone back in them days, especially with the fight about going to Vietnam. Even our own color turned on him, but he stood his ground. Rest in peace, champ. You will be missed. God bless.